Hey yo, thanks for tuning in to The Source, your source for celebrity news. Check this out. As I explained before, ever since the Diddy trial started, every video that I have dropped has been limited, restricted, forced to be on review, or demonetized. I mean, it's crazy. But with that being said, y'all know me, and y'all know darn well, I'm not gonna let anything stop me from reporting on this trial, even if I have to get mad creative for a second. So, this is what I'm getting ready to do. I'm getting ready to drop 3 videos back to back to back in a row. A few hours apart, but in a row. And these videos are podcasts that I have created in the meantime to offer you some insight analysis and breakdowns of some of the key points and testimony that have happened in the trial so far. And trust me, it's mad interesting. So, I just wanted to jump on here and let you know what I was doing so that when you see some videos that look a little different, you're not like, yo, what's the source over there doing? Listen, I'm trying to expand my repertoire. Anyhow, after I get done dropping these 3-4 videos, I will be back to give you a comprehensive breakdown on the trial thus far. Alright, so be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and let's get into it.
Today we're getting into the details of Cassie Ventura's Day 2 testimony. It's obviously a key part of this ongoing federal investigation involving Sean Diddy Combs.
Yeah, we've got excerpts from her testimony here. And our goal is really to understand what she said, look at the legal side about, coercion, potential trafficking, and what her testimony might mean for the prosecution.
Definitely. And we should say up front, these are serious allegations. We're sticking to what's in these excerpts, reporting impartially on the content we have.
Absolutely. Just focusing on the testimony itself and its context.
Okay, so Day 2. It seems like it started with some legal housekeeping, maybe. Combs' lawyers were worried about testimony being discussed during breaks and attorney-client privilege.
Right. Standard concerns in any trial, really. Making sure those lines aren't crossed. It's about fairness, ensuring neither side gets an improper advantage. You even see the prosecution mentioning talking to another witness's lawyer. Everyone's navigating these rules.
Then there was something brief about a juror needing accommodation, and Mrs. Ventura's husband had to leave the courtroom before some specific issue came up. That sounds intriguing.
It does. We don't know why from these notes, but yeah, it just reminds you there are real people involved, personal stuff happening around the main proceedings.
Privacy screens were also discussed, apparently, and more debate about when Ms. Ventura could talk to her lawyer. Sounds like they were really hashing out the ground rules.
Exactly. It's that constant balance, isn't it? A witness needs legal advice, but the testimony itself needs to flow without improper coaching. When and what they can discuss is often a sticking point.
The AUSA, the prosecutor, also seemed worried about how long the defense planned to cross-examine. Mentioning security and transport for witnesses suggests they were bracing for a long haul.
Yeah, practical stuff, but it shows they expect a tough, maybe lengthy cross-examination, protecting witnesses, making sure they can get their safely basic but vital prosecution duties.
But then things got a bit heated, it sounds like. The prosecution wasn't happy about the defense turning over text message exhibits late. USA Comey apparently called it a trial by ambush, mentioned Rule 16. Why is that such a big deal?
Well, Rule 16 is basically about showing your cards beforehand. Both sides have to share evidence they plan to use, reasonably in advance, so everyone gets a fair shot to prepare.
Okay.
If you suddenly spring new evidence, the other side can't properly check it out, figure out how to respond, or prepare their cross-examination. It really throws a wrench in the works. So, yeah, trial by ambush captures that feeling of being unfairly surprised.
Yeah, and the judge agreed with the prosecution, ordered the defense to hand over the text before cross-examination.
Seems so. That's a win for the prosecution, definitely. Gives them time to actually look at these messages, see what the defense is planning, and prepare how they'll handle it. Levels the playing field a bit.
Okay, so with all that sorted, Ms. Ventura gets back on the stand. Direct examination continues, and they introduce GX8 messages and photos from her devices. This is where we really get into her specific claims.
Right, and digital evidence like this text, photos, it can be incredibly powerful. It provides a kind of real-time record, potentially very hard to dispute, gives you a window right into their interactions.
The testimony then went into some really dark places. She talked about Combs allegedly going out armed, looking for Suge Knight, and telling her to ask escorts if they were cops.
Yeah, that paints a very specific picture, doesn't it? It suggests paranoia, maybe danger, and this strange mix where interactions with escorts are framed by potential police involvement. And it brings these escorts into the story early on.
She also said that early on, if she tried to push back against him, he'd just get more violent, wanting to push me harder.
That's textbook coercive control dynamics, potentially. The idea idea that resistance isn't met with backing down, but with more aggression. It effectively shuts down dissent, you know?
The intercontinental hallway video came up again. The detail about Combs initially having empty hands, but later having her phone as she walked away. What's the angle there?
On its own, maybe small, but in the context of everything else, it could suggest control over her communication, isolating her. It adds to that narrative of dominance.
Then the texts, some really raw stuff. Combs messaging, "Call, I'm surrounded," apparently just in a towel. And she replies, "Jules left. As long as you're quiet, you can stay. Peace." And she identifies Jules as an escort. What do you make of that?
I mean, it's a very stark little exchange. His message sounds vulnerable, maybe manipulative. Her reply, mentioning the escort by name, setting conditions, it suggests she's managing his interactions, including with escorts. It confirms their presence and her knowledge.
And the photo of her with a fat lip. "Taken in an Uber," she said, followed by her text, "Please stay away from me," and his reply, "I'm getting arrested," which she didn't believe. That sequence is chilling.
It really is. The visual injury, her plea for space, his response, which she identifies as likely untrue. It paints a picture of alleged violence, then maybe deflection or manipulation, not accountability.
She talked about going home to Carrie Morgan, who called the police. But Cassie didn't tell them everything because she wasn't ready. That says a lot about the psychological state, right?
Absolutely. It highlights that fear, that hesitation victims often feel. Even when help is right there, disclosing the full truth can feel impossible. So many complex barriers.
She also mentioned Combs banging on her apartment door, said it was pretty normal for him. And later, a photo of her in a gown and sunglasses, hiding a black eye and leg bruises from an after-party incident. But then also a photo of them together at that same party. That contrast.
It's jarring, isn't it? That public face versus the alleged private reality. It shows how appearances can be kept up. That pressure to seem okay even after alleged violence.
Then she started naming escorts. Jules, Islander, Tommy, Greg, Jonathan, and cities where this happened. The repetition really drives home the idea of these systematic freak-offs, as she called them.
Right, listing multiple names and places suggests this wasn't, a one-off thing, but according to her testimony, a regular structured part of their life across different locations.
She talked about feeling uncomfortable with kissing during these encounters, finding it too intimate, but said Combs told her to do it anyway. What does that specific detail suggest?
Well, that goes right to the heart of coercion allegations, doesn't it? It points to a supposed lack of autonomy, her personal boundaries allegedly being overridden by his instructions, even within these specific sexual contexts.
And being pulled from her own 29th birthday party at Blind Dragon for a freak-off. That sounds incredibly degrading.
Yeah, having a personal celebration like your birthday completely disregarded for something like that. It speaks volumes about the alleged power imbalance and the devaluation of her own feelings and significance in the relationship.
The blackmail allegations are really disturbing too. She said Combs wanted her scared of freak-off videos being released if she dated someone else, making her feel deep shame. How serious are threats like that legally?
Extremely serious. Threatening to release private, compromising material is a potent form of control. It holds someone hostage emotionally, stops them from moving on, making their own choices, all out of fear of public ruin. It's pure coercion.
There was a text from 2013 where she asked him to delete videos because too many people have access to your devices. His reply, "No iCloud, all good." Sounds pretty dismissive.
Right. It seems to brush off her very valid concern about privacy and how vulnerable that material was. Unlikely to have reassured her much, you'd think.
She also described being told about another explicit video leading to this meeting with Who Kid in Atlantic City. And she felt intimidated because security was there.
Yeah, having security present in that kind of meeting definitely creates an atmosphere. It could easily be perceived as intimidation, a way to reinforce power and discourage her from, making trouble about the video.
Her description of the aftermath. Using opiates to get numb, massages, IV fluids, the UTIs with painful symptoms she discussed with Combs. It's a grim picture of the toll.
It really is. Those details make the alleged consequences very real, very physical. And the fact she apparently discussed these health problems with him adds another layer, this disturbing normalization of it all within their dynamic.
Jules, the escort, came up again accompanying them to sex clubs. And Ventura specifically said she did not want to have sex with Jules, but did it because of Combs. That sounds directly relevant to trafficking allegations.
Absolutely pivotal.
Yeah.
That's potentially a direct statement addressing the core elements of sex trafficking, the lack of consent, the coercion, being directed by another person into a sex act she didn't want. That's exactly what prosecutors look for.
She also testified Combs put his hand on her during these freakouts, while escorts were present, naming Jules again in different cities, and said the escorts sometimes asked if she was okay after.
Wow. That's a powerful detail. If third parties, the escorts themselves, noticed her distress enough to ask about her well-being, it adds significant weight to her claims that she was uncomfortable, possibly being mistreated, during those times.
Then the testimony listed more alleged physical violence. An attack before a Canadian music festival, being thrown into a bed frame with a photo of her eye shown, a freak off in the Hamptons with alleged GHB use, blacking out, waking up nude in the shower with Combs and another escort. These are incredibly serious.
Deeply serious. Allegations of assault, potential drugging, non-consensual acts. It builds on that alleged pattern of abuse and lack of consent. The GHB mention is particularly alarming.
And that bizarre can incident, accused of drugs, thrown off a boat without her passport, then forced onto a red carpet. That sounds completely destabilizing.
It really does. It paints a picture of incredibly erratic, controlling behavior. Allegedly isolating her 1 minute, forcing her into a public display the next, all seemingly at his whim, highlights that power imbalance again.
She dated the start of the physical violence to the first year. Mentioned being hit in the car in NYC. Then that really graphic account from January 2009 in LA after talking to a producer called a slut. She hits him, he allegedly stomped on her face in a car for 10 minutes, then taken to the London hotel for over a week, too scared to leave. That's harrowing.
It's an extremely detailed and brutal account of alleged assault. And the subsequent description of being held effectively at the hotel due to fear that really emphasizes the level of alleged control and violence she's describing.
There was even a mention of a blind item online, possibly about that 2009 assault. She admitted denying it to her mother, wanting to protect her.
Yeah, that highlights the isolation, doesn't it? Feeling you have to hide the truth even from family, often out of a desire to protect them, which just isolates the victim further.
More incidents followed. Leaving a party because she heard Combs was there, fearing his reaction. Another alleged hotel assault leaving bruises. And then the incident involving Kid Cutie, Scott Mescudi. Combs supposedly finds an email about her taking toiletries to Scott's place, threatens her with a wine opener, and again threatens to release the freak-off videos. It's a recurring theme.
Right, bringing Scott Mescudi into it shows the alleged control extending outwards, potentially threatening anyone she got close to, using those alleged videos as a weapon again and again.
She described returning to Combs' house, being kicked in the back, then finding her hotel room trashed with signs of defecation and urination. That is shocking.
Utterly shocking. It suggests extreme rage, a complete violation of personal space and dignity, a very disturbing picture of their alleged dynamic.
An email she sent her mother and Capricorn Clark apparently detailed Combs' threat to release a tape on Christmas and harm her and Scott. Having that in writing could be important.
Documentary evidence, like an email, can be crucial. It potentially backs up her spoken testimony about the threats with something tangible from the time.
Photos of bruises on her back, taken by her mother in Connecticut. Though Ventura admitted she wasn't fully honest with her mom about everything, the abuse or the freak-offs. Again, that complexity of disclosure.
Exactly. It shows how hard it is to tell the whole story, even to people you trust, because of shame, fear, maybe trying to downplay it. But the photos themselves are potential physical evidence.
She then talked about breaking up with Scott because it felt dangerous, a trip to Arizona where Combs allegedly talked about wanting Scott's car blown up, and then later acting innocent about it to Scott himself. It sounds like calculated manipulation.
It really does. The alleged threat against Scott's property, then the denial. It portrays an effort to control her relationships through intimidation directed at both her and others, coupled with manipulation.
Photos from Jamaica and Combs' bathroom in 2015 supposedly showed her recuperating from being beaten up by Sean in Las Vegas after another producer-related incident. And messages with someone called D-Rock about icing her face. More potential corroboration.
Right. You have photos allegedly showing recovery and communication with a third party, D-Rock, seemingly confirming an injury occurred and needed treatment. That strengthens her account of that specific Las Vegas incident.
Ms. Ventura made it clear there were more instances of physical abuse she didn't detail. And she testified she saw Combs be violent with others too, dragging an assistant, punching an Eli, dragging someone in Turks and Caicos, an incident on her balcony, hitting Carrie Morgan. Why mention violence towards others?
It helps establish a potential pattern of behavior. If the prosecution can show he was allegedly violent towards multiple people, not just her, it can bolster the argument that this was his character, his way of operating, and contribute to the atmosphere of fear she described.
She also talked about drugs, getting opiates, Xanax, Valium herself, but also Combs giving her pills from a vitamin C bottle, using prescriptions under other names. That seems legally risky.
Definitely raises questions about controlled substances, how they were sourced and distributed, could point to other potential illegal activities beyond the core allegations.
Near the end, she covered the aftermath of the relationship breaking in 2018, sleepwalking, PTSD, a knife by her door for protection. Then the devastating allegation of rape in August 2018 after a closure conversation.
A very serious and distinct allegation added to the timeline.
She also mentioned the later voluntary sexual encounter, communications after, including his demand she repay money he paid her now husband, who was her trainer. Her response hinting at abuse, more than freak-offs, then a suicide attempt, therapy, writing a book.
It shows the long tail of trauma, the processing, the attempts to make sense of it all, and the financial entanglements that continued.
The book led to the lawsuit. Initial $30 million ask, filed in November 2023, settled for $20 million in just 24 hours. And her reason for testifying now: I can't carry this anymore. What's wrong is wrong. She also acknowledged her own past behavior, estimated hundreds of freak-offs, and said she stopped after the breakup. It's a massive amount of testimony.
It truly is. A comprehensive, detailed, and obviously deeply emotional account spanning years, covering alleged abuse, control, the aftermath, and the legal steps taken. Her stated motive and self-reflection add another dimension.
Okay, so let's pull back and look at the potential strengths for the prosecution here. Specifically thinking about coercion, trafficking, and PACA. The sheer volume of incidents she described, the detail. It certainly points towards a pattern of coercive control, right?
Oh, absolutely. Instance after instance alleged control over the freak-offs, her movements, her relationships, the threats with the videos. It builds a strong narrative of systematic coercion, of allegedly breaking down her will to maintain dominance.
And for sex trafficking, her testimony about the escorts, especially saying she didn't want to have sex with Jules but felt she had to because of Combs, that seems like it hits the definition squarely.
Yes, that's incredibly direct testimony on that point. If believed, it addresses the core elements: being compelled or coerced into a commercial sex act against her will. Her stated lack of consent is absolutely key there.
Now, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act.
Yeah.
It's about organized crime patterns. How does her testimony feed into a potential case against Combs?
Well, her testimony, if backed up, could establish that pattern. You have the repeated alleged acts, coercion, sexual exploitation like the freak-offs, physical violence, and potentially these acts were facilitated by others. Security, assistance suggesting an enterprise structure, the financial bits too, the settlement, the demand for money back for the trainer could show financial activities tied to this alleged enterprise. It provides a lot of potential predicate acts.
And there seem to be quite a few points where corroboration might exist. The texts, the photos of injuries, the D-Rock messages, maybe even that blind item reference. How crucial is that corroborating evidence?
It's vital. Her testimony is powerful, but independent evidence, texts, photos, third-party accounts makes it much stronger. It adds objective weight to her subjective account. Each piece of corroboration helps build credibility and validates her claims for the jury.
And just the way she delivered it, the emotional impact, the specificity, dates, places, that has to count for something. Plus, her acknowledging her own past behavior at the end, does that help or hurt her credibility?
The detail and vividness can be very compelling, yes. It makes it feel real. As for acknowledging her own behavior, it could enhance credibility. Jurors might see it as honesty, a willingness to present the whole complex picture, even the uncomfortable parts about herself. It can make her seem more believable overall.
So it's undeniable. Her testimony lays out extremely serious allegations, and you can see the potential legal avenues for the prosecution, coercion, trafficking.
Definitely. Her account provides a very detailed roadmap for the prosecution's case, centering on that pattern of alleged coercive, exploitative, and potentially illegal conduct over many years.
Thinking ahead then, given all this, what are the big challenges the prosecution might face? And what could be turning points in a case this complex, stretching back so long? And maybe more broadly, what does her testimony show us about power dynamics and just how hard it is for someone in that alleged situation? It leaves you with a lot to think about.
Big questions. Challenges include proving events from years ago, potential memory inconsistencies, defense attacks on her credibility, finding enough solid corroboration for every claim. Turning points could be new corroborating evidence, testimony from others involved, maybe the escort's assistants, D-Rock. Her testimony itself is a stark look at alleged power abuse, the psychological toll, and the immense difficulty victims face in speaking out and seeking justice after potentially years of complex entanglement and alleged control. It's a difficult journey, clearly.
Listen, let me know what you think about everything that was discussed in today's video. And while you're down there leaving a comment, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Hey yo, thanks for tuning in to The Source, your source for celebrity news. Peace.